areas of focus for us as a school was empathy, and essentially teaching our young people to be empathetic again and encouraging that in them as much as possible. So it was presented to management, and management approved of it. And because I'm not a particularly sporty person, I saw this as a great opportunity to get a medal of some description. So I thought, why not? Let's go for it. And people were very much on board. So for the bronze award at post-primary level, I won't read through all the parts, but this is generally this is what it looks like for any schools going for the bronze award. So we did our 5 exchanges. We had more than 3 teachers in the first year, which was great. Our staff were really, really responsive to this, which was fantastic. We did a staff story exchange then as well, and we did our 10-minute presentation for the whole school. So people were really, really on board from the get-go, but obviously this takes a good bit of planning. So that was the why we actually did it in the first place. So we did it for our students, not realizing that once we started to implement this how, that it would actually have a much wider impact than that. We ultimately thought this is for our students. There's actually much more that we got out of it. So we brought the idea to management, we floated the idea then with teachers and with students as well, getting yearheads to kind of post little messages on their Google Classroom saying, oh, look how your empathy exchange is coming up, are you prepared for it, do you have stuff ready for it, do you have your story prepared? We stuck with a happy moment as our theme to keep it straightforward for the last 2 years. We're going to try the object exchange next year maybe and see how it goes. So obviously we had to float it with people, make sure everyone was comfortable with it and knew what it was about. And ultimately then, logistically, you do have to think about a lot of different things when you're in a school setting. I'm sure other teachers have experienced it as well. How much time you're going to have, so we need a 2-hour period to do it with students, and we also need 6 weeks of a kind of a well-being module to prepare them for it as well, so there's a good bit of planning that goes into that. What space you're going to use, how you're going to get feedback, how you're going to collect feedback from people as well is very important to us too. And lastly, the most important thing, getting people talking. So when people did their empathy training, I made sure it said to the facilitators at lunchtime, instead of talking about what classes you're teaching next, talk about when you're doing your next empathy exchange and promote it with people. So those informal conversations were happening in the school, which was great to see as well. So that was very much our how we actually implemented it in the first place. Again, I said this to Laura and Rachel when they came out to visit us. I'm really, really lucky that our management were incredibly supportive of this. I know it's not always an option depending on the size of the school, but if you want to ask questions about it later on, I can give people advice or tips on the scheduling of it in terms of timetabling. So obviously the most important part then, the students, so them actually getting involved in the first place. So we thought again that this was going to be, our students are really going to be impacted mostly by this, but the impact has been much more widespread than just in kind of their sphere or in their realm. So that's the most recent group that did their exchange, is the 3rd year group. So firstly, the learning is undeniable. This is just from one particular class group, 26 responses. Learn that no one is judging you, it's okay to make mistakes, everyone has good intentions, they want people to be happy, not to care what others think. So even the messages that aren't necessarily explicitly promoted by Narrative 4, there are so many things that they learn just by proxy through doing these exchanges, which is a brilliant thing to see. And again, they weren't coerced into writing these things, they put all of this down in the survey themselves, which is great. In terms of kind of the student perspective then, I tried to just break it down into the main takeaways, and for us what we noticed massively was that a lot of them talked about respect. Ultimately they just didn't want people laughing at them or interrupting them or whatever it might be. They just wanted to be heard and listened to, so everyone was able to express their emotion, feel safe, everyone was respectful, no one laughed or interrupted each other. Just really, really pleasant to read, really positive outcome from it. A lot of the students talked about understanding as well. I think what was really special for us is seeing the teachers and my peers being understanding and patient. As teachers, we have a lot to do during the day, a lot of boxes to tick, and a lot of exercises to cross off in the book and correct or whatever it might be. But seeing the students noticed our understanding during the process, noticed that there was a different relationship there than there normally would be in the classroom, has spread into our kind of our classroom practice as well, which has been really, really special for us. Also, obviously then, there are concerns from some of the students as well, which I think are important to point out. There are 2 students there in this group of 26 that said they were quite uncomfortable during the empathy course. They found it a little bit difficult. But I actually think what this yields and what it brings about is this idea of resilience and showing the students that they're able to do this. So yes, there was a bit of discomfort, there was them not feeling all that great about it, but ultimately a lot of it was coming from them having to speak in front of the whole class and having to present this idea to a whole group of people. I think it's Barrettstown that does it really well with their therapeutic recreation model. They talk a lot about extending people's ability and pushing people right to the kind of the edge of their comfort zone, and we saw that that's what we got to do with students, because afterwards we said to them, you did it though, you were uncomfortable but you were safe, and no one was going to do you any harm. You were in a safe space, you could push yourself in as much as is possible. Brilliant. So that's the students, but then when we look at the staff and the impacts that it's had on them as well, so so far we have 7. There's 1 staff member on maternity leave, and then myself, so I didn't fill in the survey just because I didn't want it to be biased. So there's the staff felt supported, they enjoyed delivering these changes, and they felt it was clear what they had to do. Obviously, human nature being what it is, no one's ever going to feel entirely confident in doing it. But that being said, I think 80% is a pretty solid response for now. And as we get more facilitators, we'll be able to redirect people in Narrative 4, have that portal now for upskilling on the website, which is brilliant for going back over the material that you saw in your original training. My sister said to not copy and paste this into because it looked like I had written it myself. But this is an email from a parent guardian that we got, just highlighting some of the key parts. They talked about their daughter finding the experience inspirational, they talked about being heard, they talked about the connection that she felt through the group as well. This was unprovoked. We actually haven't looked for direct feedback from parents or guardians yet. That's kind of our next step in the process, but this was something that she wrote to the school, which was really nice. and felt really bad because it actually got lost in the mix for ages, but I eventually replied to her, and she was really, really appreciative of the experience. So seeing that all written down means that there is something working, that we're doing something right with this program. Again, with our staff, that's our most recent staff exchange. So we had 13 staff members, which is over 20% of our staff. We have about 50 teachers, and there were 13 people at it, so that was brilliant. Again, that's a Thursday afternoon, the Thursday before we broke for the Easter break, so I'm very lucky to have such a brilliant, positive staff. It's great to get people involved. This was then a little promo in the WhatsApp group. Can't say that it had more enjoyable CPD. So seeing that it isn't just about the students, there's a much wider impact that is taking place between parents, guardians, between staff, and all of the kind of stakeholders in the process itself. This is from the staff and that did the story exchange, just talking about how it was a nice opportunity to chat with colleagues, that they can see how it would work in well-being, brilliant to hear people's stories. And a lot of people talking about how they needed to learn to be an active listener as well. And I guess, like Dr. McMahon said, the only way that we can increase this skill in our young people and help them to develop it is by modelling that skill for them, so that if we can be better listeners, then they can be too when they see us do it. So I guess the next steps in our journey, obviously I'll continue my sporting journey towards a silver medal now, which is very exciting. We have to do a walk as well, so that's more sports for me, so this is kind of a dual function. So we're kind of halfway there at this stage, so hoping maybe to have another visit to the silver award at the start of next year, all going well. But yeah, ultimately, these ideas of respect and understanding were huge for us. And then recognizing that no process is going to be perfect, and that it's at kind of the edge of our students and our comfort zones that we get to expand ourselves and develop. So yeah, thank you very much for having me.